challenging all those guys to a foot race. In the street.
I told you my dad would have been nice. There's about a 45-year-old guy that went to Mount Marty. His name's Jimmy Bauer, played baseball, still just faster than me. I'll pay your tuition in USF next year.
If you can be.
If you beat him. But if you don't beat him, you have to pay back your unemployment. What do you think?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Jimmy Bauer, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think. She's okay.
Because he can still run. And he's like, we had me out there when Brack was down there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to address real quick?
Yes, I do. So do you.
Oh, they don't, okay.
Yeah. That's an important thing.
Change on here. It doesn't go the same time. Is there anything you would call it? I can't. Really? It just goes the same.
That's what I want.
You do it after that is.
I just want to do this. That's what I do.
I want to. I hope.
And if you get an Android product,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you all for coming tonight. First of all, the agenda. I understand there's a couple changes there, or things that are going to be added. And there is one online response for the visitors to be heard, to be read. So what I have is, at new business, after the Lincoln County property tax, there's a clarification for a letter to the editor that will be added. And then under personnel, there will be an additional C section for election worker. Did that cover everything that?
That has all the requests I received. Yes.
Motion to approve as amended. Sam? Second. Jen, Riley? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. So then we will move on to the visitors to be heard.
Thank you, Mayor. I did receive one email from a resident tonight, for tonight's meeting, I should say. And I'll read that. It's from Stacy Duchesne here in town. I read on the agenda that there will be a discussion on a new seasonal hydrant maintenance position. Upon reading the memo, it seemed that many notices have been approached about the need to perform regular preventive maintenance on fire hydrants as well as exercising valves and flushing. Until 5 years ago, the city of Lennox staff were performing regular hydrant flushing and valve exercising because it is a common and important task to ensure that the water distribution system is functioning optimally for both residential use as well as fire protection. It would seem that those we hire to maintain our infrastructure and hold the title of Public Works Director should be very well aware of this. And if there wasn't anybody on staff that was aware of it, it'd certainly be in the city engineer's realm of expertise to guide the city and their staff to the abundant resources, indicating that hydrant flushing and valve exercising was a yearly, if not 2 times per year task. Not only will hydrant flushing and valve exercising help maintain our water system, there's also great exercise for city staff who may be unfamiliar with the existing water valves and how to isolate each block in case of a water main break or other emergency to familiarize themselves. Knowing where the valves are, which lines they control, and being able to access them in an emergency are all part of a well-maintained system. Shutting the whole town off when there is a water main break because nobody knows how the system works or where the valves are located is not a viable solution that should be tolerated. I find it concerning that because now it has been pointed out that this should be part of maintenance task, it is being approached as an extra task that will require more staff. I understand there are 4 total employees in the public works umbrella at this time, which ironically is the same number of staff that was available prior to 5 years ago when this was performed on a yearly or more basis. The solution to any new or different task is not to hire additional staff. I am Stacy Duchesne.
I'd address that a little bit, I guess. I know I talked to you about this initially, Nate. I know there might be a little misunderstanding there with her. This position that we discussed, the possibility of wasn't for normal maintenance. I talked to Chief Strasser about basically not fire hydrant maintenance, but fire hydrant appearance and
Color coding.
yeah, they look kind of dilapidated, they're in need of paint for maintenance, and then we discussed color coding them, so when they have a response at 3 o'clock in the morning, they can easily identify what's an 8-inch main, a 4-inch main, so they don't accidentally collapse the line. So as we talked through it a little bit, it's, you know, we kind of felt it was important, and I think this has been discussed in the past, if I'm not correct. It's just never been gotten to. So the thought was, you know, do we need to bring somebody in just for that task this summer, whether it takes 2 weeks, a month, we don't know, but it's gotta be done.
And I think Chief Strasser was gonna show them how
Correct.
to,
He's-
how to clean it and get it down, you know, not paint anything shut.
Work on a coding system, that can all go in our, moving forward.
Steps are regular maintenance, like,
Yeah.
or upkeep, I guess, if it's not like.
We can update them electronically in our GIS system, identify which ones are which.
And I think those hydrants are in our GIS system already. They aren't identified by flow capacity or anything along those lines, but it'd certainly be a great addition to that.
I guess I look at this as a good thing, the communication between the fire department and the city council actually being more viable. Listening to what the fire department needs and helping them out. Chad did an outstanding job of reaching out and taking action. So I think having them color coded and cleaned and so that the fire department can access them appropriately is a good thing. Okay, moving on, consent agenda. Motion to approve.
Second.
Jackson, Billy, discussion? Okay, do roll call vote. Chadwick?
Aye.
Rock? Aye. Sam?
Aye.
Chad Riley? Aye. Jackson?
Aye.
Billy?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to old business, COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our every 2-week update to our response plan for COVID-19. Majority of changes at this point are going to come in Parks and Recreation, as to be expected. We will be offering concessions as soon as possible. Did end up picking some up today for the pool. I'd like to get that started. I think within the next week and a half, we'll probably do the same with the baseball games, softball, so on and so forth. So we'll clarify that no outside or patrons do not have to bring their own water bottles anymore. They're still encouraged. They can still do that. But we want to discourage use of those water bottles as much as possible. Restrooms at ball fields will be open immediately, not just during games. We're also going to open the main bathrooms up and make sure staff are cleaning those. Bleachers and stairs are not going to be marked for appropriate social distancing. I think it was obvious at the game with beers for the other night. That's just not a realistic expectation at this point. I think we're still going to have signage out both in the baseball field and the parks and just throughout. reminding people to keep an appropriate distance, but, you know, it's really going to be up to their own behavior.
Could I, have we sent out an email to the 8U and T-ball baseball parents letting them know that the season will begin in July? Because I know I've gotten a couple questions from kids that coached last year, the parents saying, well, I've seen kids out practicing. So we may want to shoot something out to that whole group, those two groups.
Yeah, I don't know if we hit them early on. I think we hit
The older ones, yeah, but we should, we should try to get something out, just so, hey, this is our plan, this is when we're going.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Did we talk about a date, was it mid-July?
I think it was July 15th.
July 15th for start, July 1 on practice.
Yeah, July 1 practice, July 15th.
Well, the senior center, I'm gonna recommend we reopen that June 15. I'll talk to, you know, they're serve safe certified anyway, and for meals. But just as important, they're to keep safe distance, so we'll talk with them. And the municipal band practices can resume immediately. I've been talking to Byron and, I talked to somebody earlier this report last week too, and I can't remember the name, it's escaping me. Talked with them, I talked to Byron after the last meeting again since, about how they can do this practically. So they're talking about, you know, the potential of doing some chamber concerts instead of smaller groups. But they've got some ways to do that, so, they seem pretty optimistic about being able to get back in business and, have at least something ready for the July 4th parade as well. With that, I would recommend a motion to approve the updates to that plan.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Pose same sign. All right, motion carries. On to new business, Lincoln County property tax.
Yep. So I have Marlene here, and I think she's gonna go over, the pool.
Okay, as I am sure you are aware of, hi, by the way, I'm Marlene Skeeter, Lincoln County Auditor, sorry. I do have a copy for each of you if you'd like to pass those out. The bond was inadvertently not placed on the tax roll for the 2019 K-20 taxes, so consequently, you are not going, you will not have the money collected from the taxpayers of the city to make that bond payment. So I was asked to give you just a little idea of what that would have looked like. The bond levy was a total, the bond payment was, for this year, was $154,820, plus the $34,230.33 was the payment that was paid in 2019, in July of 2019, as I understand. So the total that was asked to be assessed was $189,140.33. If the levy had been on the tax statement, the levy that would have been assessed would have been 1.476. So basing that on a $150,000 valuation of a home, that would have amounted to $221.40. So based on, you know, if it was a $300,000 house, it would be double that, whatever that valuation is. That, however, did not happen. So I did take a look at what the projected valuation for Lennox is for 20Pay21. And this is without the utilities. These are the very basic numbers. They haven't been approved by the state. But it looks like your valuation for 20Pay21 will be the 129,929,926. So if the levy request was 189,140.33, which should have been assessed this year, and we added on top of that the 156,020, which would be your request for 20Pay21, That would give you a total request for pay 21 of $345,160.33, which comes to a levy of 2.657 that would be assessed. So that would equal $398.55 based on that $150,000 valuation. So it would be steeper. Yes, it would. It will not be double, but it would be steeper. So then I was asked to look at the ideas if we divided that $189,140.33 by 13 installments and added $14,549.26 to each of the remaining 13 payments. So projected on, again, the projected valuation that we have out there, dividing it by the 156,020, the levy would be 1.201, and that would be on the 156,020. And which would then take it to $180.15 for every 150,000 evaluation. So then if I added the 14,549.26, just for that additional would be 0.112, or would be $16.80 additional on the 150,000, and their total dollar for that pool bond would be $196.95, based on the 150,000.
Over 13 years, Marlon.
Pardon?
That would be,
That 14,000 would be added to the 13 remaining years is what it would be, yes.
Just to be clear, this wasn't any sort of mistake by the city of Lennox, correct?
It ultimately landed up to be my mistake for not placing it on the tax roll, not understanding, I guess, more than anything else, that that's what was being asked. You know, I've done a lot of talking to the Department of Revenue. I've done a lot of talking to legislative audit. We're working very hard to put some other things in place. I mean, this is not the first time that something like this has happened. I'm just very lucky it wasn't a $2 million school launch or something. So while yes, I did not place that levy, I did furnish this office with the levy that was out there on January 6th. And I would have hoped that somewhere along the line, someone would have noticed that this bond was not on your tax statement. And I got, being the first year for that to happen, it didn't. And if I had discovered it in January, I could have fixed it all. It didn't get discovered until May. So the first half taxes.
I would assume that Lincoln County then will take care of this 184,000.
No.
Why?
Because it's your bond to pay.
This isn't gonna go against our credit rating at all, is it?
No, because you'll be making the payment. You're still making the payment.
it just happens to
So
catch up.
logistically,
But are we gonna end up paying
we'll
more
end up
interest?
paying our principal and interest this year, no matter what. We won't be made whole for, we catch up essentially after 14 years on the obligation from, for what's due from the county collected on the list.
I guess I just don't understand why, if it's Lincoln County's mistake, why Lincoln County wouldn't correct it. I mean, this is an error and omission by your office.
Yes, it is.
So my question is why,
It was not all, I mean, this office was also afforded that this was what the levy was.
yeah, but
The levy,
who sets the levy?
who sets the levy?
Your office, right, is the one that
That's
sets
correct,
the
I
payment?
do. Yes, I
So,
do.
I'm just confused as to why our people have to pay more than what we, or they may have budgeted to pass this pool bond?
But it will be paid, if the county pays it, it's paid by all taxpayers, including the city of Lennox and everybody else. And if,
Do you guys not have like an errors and omissions insurance
yes,
policy?
we do, but it does not cover it, believe you me, I've done all the avenues. I've done all the avenues.
Why would that not cover that error?
That is a great question, if I may.
Yes, please do.
Mike Hopkins, County Chair. So obviously it appeared like it should be in Arizona mission, but by their definition, it does not qualify for that because it's something that can be rectified because it's although, yes, the taxpayers are, Lennox are still gonna end up having to pay it and can pay it, it's just gonna have to be later in the cycle.
Well, there may be some people that can't pay the extra.
$16 and.
Yes, there might be some people that have not budgeted for that. I mean, that's not fair to our taxpayers in Lennox.
There's not anything that I can tell you other than it doesn't follow under Arizona mission. There's no grounds for us to just forgo it. Obviously, you don't have grounds to forgo it, it has to get paid. So we're willing to work with you to try to rectify if there's any potential increase in interest rate that somebody has to pay. But the $16, they could budget it this year and put it away if they had to. They're not paying any more for those.
Well, they will
for
pay
this
more.
I
No,
mean,
they-
not
they
over,
won't
not
pay
over the whole
more.
thing.
No, but instead of being spread out over however many years, it's spread out over 1 year and less term. That's
Yeah,
not
but-
fair to our people.
It's still not costing them anymore. If they want to flip it, it's not.
Well, it is. Essentially,
No, it's not.
the next year it will cost them more. Their payment will go up $16.80 a month.
No,
It's
not,
your
no,
guys-
no,
it's-
no, 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 no.
it's your guys'
This is
mistake.
not a month,
You
that's
guys
not
need-
It's not a month. It's not a month.
It's not $16.80 a month, that's a year. That's $16.80 a year.
Yes, that's an annual. Gotcha.
That's these are based on annual, not on monthly.
Well, in my opinion, it's your guys' error, and you should correct it. I don't know if we have any recourse for that.
Well, you can pursue that. I can tell you that it's fixable. It's still a requirement that, and we've gone through that. That's why it's not here's the mission. It's a simple mistake that can be rectified.
So you talk to people essentially?
Oh, yes.
And they said
Yeah,
that it's otherwise correctable.
The only way that it would cover is if I stole the money.
Yeah, now she stole the money.
Now, if I stole the money, it would cover. Get that. Believe you me. I've looked at every option. I'm not proud of this mistake, Mike.
No, and I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. It's
I
just,
mean, I'm not proud of this
But
mistake.
there's multiple levels that miss this. I think there's a lot of unusual, how do you describe it? It's not the standard bond. Didn't get put on right away. There was just a lot of steps that, in the essence, now looking back, we see why it was missed. And we're gonna put in, extra precautions, of course, that never happen again. But even the state missed it multiple times.
The state missed it in all honesty, because it was, and the reason they missed it, because it was passed in 18 and you made a 19 payment, so it really should have been put on in 18, pay 19.
Right.
And that's why,
Just,
But it was, there's no way it could have been.
yeah, it could have been.
Oh, it could have been?
Yeah, it could have been, because you had your amortization schedule as soon as that bond was passed. And it was passed on October 2nd, and like I say, if this had been brought to my attention, I mean, I didn't print tax statements until into January. Any time before that tax was spread, it could be fixed.
so,
And
what I can tell you, I work with my board to try to make anybody whole if there is extra tax money cost. But that over this period of time, I don't know if it's gonna add to $100 per person or not for this whole thing, but, if that does get the case, I definitely will go to the board and say we need to rectify that. But given that the principal and the general interest can be corrected, and hence that's why the mission doesn't come into play, because it's correctable. It's truly not long-term damage.
And the valuation going forward is a moving target.
Yeah.
In theory, it will
Yep.
increase and
Yeah, so,
Change
we were a little surprised that there's no cover, even for the extra interest, if there is some, that doesn't qualify for the Arizona mission, so.
If we continue to make our payments as scheduled, there shouldn't be.
Right. Now, if
That,
there's.
that shouldn't change the amortization schedule on our end.
No, it should not change your amortization schedule. It will not change your amortization schedule. No, it will not. And again, you have to remember, this is based on 129, 929, 926. They don't have utilities in there yet. So that levy is going to be, that 1680 is going to be smaller, because it's because it's a small amount. It's not a perfect answer, I get it. I can apologize for that error.
Now, if you want to, I will say that as a commissioner, I will send out, if we need to your residents to explain it, so they understand why it's happening. If they do need to budget this year for the future of the $16 extra a year, we can do that so people can be
Well, I
prepared.
think you guys need to notify all the residents that are paying on this bond and let them know that it was your mistake.
I
It's
will,
not solely our mistake.
no, I won't do that. I won't say
I
that.
thought you said earlier in our conversation that it rolls up to you.
It does roll
I'm the last man standing here, is
Okay.
what it is. The state missed it, I notified this office of the levy, and
If we can
You know-
refrain from putting blame on it, it can be rectified, and we can move on, and we can all work together.
I would appreciate if you would just send out a letter letting the residents know, just basically.
I gladly sign that, and so people, then if they need to plan, but you need to give us direction in which way you want to go. If you prefer it to be a one-time, so they can just save everything from this year and make it next year, or if they want to spread it out over 4 years, or however many
How
years.
quickly do you guys need minutes on there?
Yesterday.
We do have this as a discussion and information item tonight.
Can't have.
I would recommend taking it up for
Just
action
let
at the next meeting. Go from there.
All right.
and you will be happy to know that this did qualify for my resignation. This is not acceptable to me. I do not, it's my mistake, I get it. I was the last man standing. And I don't appreciate doing it. I didn't do it on purpose. These are mistakes that happen. And they are supposed to be checked by the state. It didn't happen.
So,
So I
just let
apologize.
us know.
And I apologize to the people of Lennox.
When it is, it's just a mistake, it can be rectified, there's truly no harm to anybody. Maybe some small difference in interest rates, only because they paid it a year later than what they would have, so.
We'll get it on the agenda.
Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you.
Thank
All right, guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Marlene.
All right. Next one is the clarification of transfer for the letter to the editor.
I'll take this on as the president of the council. And for those of you that haven't read, there was a letter written to the Lennox Independent last week, which we certainly encourage to bring your concerns to us via email or phone calls or even those types of letters. We also encourage opinions as well. Better yet, if you have questions or concerns, we would also like you to provide answers to problems as well. Those seem to be shortcoming most of the time if you have them. So we want to take an opportunity to provide some clarification with regard to a letter that was published last week in the Lennox Independent. We believe clarification is necessary to correct what we believe are factual or some factual misrepresentations expressed in that letter of a concerned citizen, so that you have the information you need to respond to any questions you may receive or have for yourself. Again, your response to the letter is in no way, or this response is in no way of an endorsement for or against any type of candidate for office, but simply background information, correcting information stated in the letter. Overall, what the writer expresses in the paragraph about Central Basin Project is simply not true. We want to point out first and foremost that this is not a street project as expressed in the letter, but Central Basin is a utility replacement project. There simply happens to be streets in the way, which are certainly overdue for replacement of those utilities. There have been 3 major projects done to our underground infrastructure since 2015. They are as follows for those that don't know. Central Basin 1 in 2015, South Main Project, I believe, was in 2017, and Central Basin 2 and 3 done in 2019-2020. As you know, Central Basin 2 began last year and will be completed this year, and while it is assumed that this project is behind schedule, there still remains 8 days on the construction schedule. And this is due to rain weather delays from last year. So while we had targeted last fall for a completion date, the project is still open without liquidated damages until June 16. Central Basin 3 commenced on Monday, June 1 as scheduled. In regard to the funding for the projects, we've always had a chart available for anyone who wants to take the time to look at it. The fact that grant dollars were not used is utterly false. Central Basin 1 had $100 million in grants. Main Street had $760,000 in grants.
How many? 100 billion?
1 million.
You said 100.
Yeah, he did.
Sorry, $1 million in grants. Main Street had $760,000 in grants, and Central Basin 2 and 3 had $2.27 million in grants. Those monies, of course, don't have to be paid back. The letter is correct in saying that there are discrepancies on the funding upon discovering these discrepancies on phases 2 and 3, likely due to how the financing the package was presented to the South Dakota DENR. The majority of this current council wanted clarification on the funding packages for the aforementioned projects when compared to Central Basin 2 and 3 project, and so we did ask for a delay in the project to do some research on the funding package. After asking for expert advice from legal counsel, engineers, and CCOG, they strongly advised us not to redo the funding package with DENR, as it was the largest funding given to a community that year. If you have questions or would like to see the funding spreadsheet of the 3 projects, it is available at City Hall. We have discussed as a council a funding formula for any large projects moving forward, which should have been the common practice to begin with. Again, just to reiterate, we did take grants out for the project. The city of Lennox secured $4.7 million in SRF funding, not the $1.375 million referenced by the writer for Central Basin 2 and 3. Of that, $2.27 million was secured in grants, which is 48% of the project. The $1.375 million referenced in the letter refers only to the additional funding the city secured to complete the projects to its fullest extension possible. The writer also claims that residents will see a $6 per month increase in their monthly water and sewer surcharge in June of this year to cover costs related to Lewis and Clark Regional Water System. This statement is also false. The $6 per month increase is not tied in any way to Lewis and Clark Regional Water System, but instead the surcharge assessed to pay back the $1.375 million in additional obligations for Central Basin 2 and 3. So basically for these projects, just so people understand, there's a number of different ways to pay for the project. There are grants, there are loans, and there is cash. And if you do look at the projects, it's all over the board in terms of funding those 3 projects. I don't like it as a taxpayer. I don't like it as a council member. Why do we put $1.2 million down of cash in Central Basin 1, knowing we had all these other projects to do? I can't answer that question. It can get confusing, but during those bonds have to be paid back, or those loans have to be paid back, and they're done through surcharges, and they're done through special assessment. If you look at these 3 projects, some have surcharges to all the residents, some don't have any surcharges at all. Some have special assessment, some don't have any special assessment at all. Doesn't make sense to me why it was set up that way, but that's what it was, and we've got to move forward with some type of mathematical formula with big projects. In fact, our water rates have gone down. We know it can be confusing at times, but water rate is separate from surcharges that are used to pay for improvement, and that water rate did drop a little bit this last year. The writer next takes on a linear footage charge for maintenance and states that additional costs will be assessed to property owners to cover costs of curb, gutter, street projects. This is accurate, as we have discussed in the city, and we've been more than forthcoming regarding this information, going so far as to hold 3 separate open houses to discuss the possibility with taxpayers. Surveys were sent to taxpayers early this year, and the results of that survey will be presented at the June 8 council meeting, which is tonight, as discussed on numerous occasions and mentioned in the city administrator's report in May of 2020. The survey of the residents say that it would like to see 2 to 3 blocks done per year as funding is available. In doing so, we would have 12 to 13 miles of streets all redone in 50 years. So do the math, we'd have all the streets done, okay, in 2070. If you attended one of the open houses for the street plan, experts would tell you that even in the best maintenance plan, a street can last up to 35 years. That being said, and this is my opinion, it doesn't make sense that we put together a plan for a longer time frame because we're just going to be chasing our tail. But that's something we'll discuss later in tonight's meeting. The survey itself costs very little, aside from our annual membership fee on the website and my time to compile and analyze the data. Results of the Park and Rec COVID-19 survey were released quickly due to the time-sensitive nature of the data. In attempting to create a safe recreation environment, we felt it was more important to release the information in a timely manner, particularly in such a rapidly evolving environment. The city of Lennox, along with much of the world, has been focused on appropriate responses and precautions to mitigate COVID-19 over the past several months, and this council firmly feels that this is an appropriate use of our energy, and the survey results for a long-term infrastructure plan can safely be delayed. With regard to the walking path, the writer has a genuine concern, and we would be happy to direct staff to further remove snow or ice from the walking path. However, we cannot direct them to do so in June. It is true that residents in adjoining properties are expected to maintain the grass between the property line and the right-of-way and the street. This is as true for every property owner as it is for those living along the rec trail. It has a city right-of-way and is not a parkway. This practice has been long established in local government and is required by current ordinances. The writer states next that every employee received some sort of raise in the last year. Very few employees received a raise. It is important to understand what cost of living adjustment or COLA is and what it isn't. It is not meant to compensate an employee for performance in any way. It is simply a way of keeping up with the inflationary aspects of local, state, and national economy. Our COLA is based on the Consumer Price Index, which is the most accurate method to date in which to determine how the cost of living changes from one moment in time to another. The writer mentions the salary for the administrator was $82,000 in 2018. When he was hired, that the budget for that current year was still $114,343. Presenting the departmental budget number as our city administrator is at best misleading and at worst a blatant attempt to mislead. The departmental budget includes FICA, Medicare retirement insurance, medical insurance, dental insurance, mobile phone reimbursement, travel, and other expenses. And as far as looking into positions that are similar in other communities, we are at or below the salary of most of those positions. We are not going to get into the details of who was hired when and for how much, and the amounts cited for each employee appear to be accurate and they are available to the public. However, the assumption that any of the city's salaried employees enjoy a 40-hour work week is inaccurate. Many of our staff have personally seen and experienced each of the employees mentioned putting in well over 40 hours per week and well over what the job expects. While each employee expects to be compensated fairly for their work based on market conditions, few folks do this work because it pays so well. They do it because they enjoy it and because they're passionate about what they do. The writer also mentions that many companies are cutting wages or laying off employees due to COVID-19, and that all the city has done is cut travel and supplies. It is important to note that travel was not cut to save costs, but to save lives. Most employee trainings were canceled by hosts due to the pandemic. The city has made no cuts due to COVID-19 because our revenue has not suffered as a result of the pandemic. In fact, May sale tax revenue indicate more than an 18% increase in revenue. It certainly pays for buying local. A revised budget was drafted and presented to the city council in May, and the budget made significant cuts to many departments in the event that revenue would drop significantly due to the COVID-19 pandemic. That, thankfully, has not been necessary. So far as we know, the salaries of the state and local government leaders mentioned in the letter are accurate. However, they do not tell the complete story. Each of those elected officials or offices are employees appointed by elected officials to carry out the business of the government unit. For example, consider the following leadership roles under the mayor of Sioux Falls. Director of Public Works, $196,000. Utility Operations Manager, $143,000. Director of Finance, $171,000. Director of Siouxland Libraries, $129,000. And a Chief of Staff with a salary of $165,000. These positions are held incredibly well-qualified individuals who are, without a doubt, experts in their field. And as such, they are compensated fairly for their qualifications, performance, and track record. They are paid more than their elected officials in many cases because of their qualifications. And we try to hire for quality, and we often get what we pay for. The next item, we find no use in continuing to discuss all the specifics of a letter that was sent to the fire department nearly a year ago in response to our concern for the orderly development of the city's budget, but feel just to highlight a few here. There's been tremendous progress made regarding the funding for the Lennox Volunteer Fire Department. This includes a completed grant of nearly $187,000, which until this year has never been completed. In 2018, the South Dakota Fire Departments received approximately $9.3 million in federal funding. The Lennox Fire Department had never completed an AFG application, which we did address in the letter, and they've done that now. And according to the fire department, in this current fiscal year, they have applied for over $250,000 in grants. Very impressed by that effort. In some of our research, we did find that according to state statute, a second issue dealt with the townships within the fire department coverage area shall have a contract between the two parties. Although the townships have supported the Lennox Volunteer Fire Department, an actual contract has never been signed as state law requires. That being said, there's a tremendous progress on this front as well. In fact, there's a meeting involving city representatives, township representatives, and fire department reps this upcoming Thursday, June 11th, to help shape the budget for the Lennox Volunteer Fire Department. This is the second meeting of these entities in the last 2 months, which will help resolve this issue. Another issue was concerning the 501c3 nonprofit status for the department due to an oversight regarding the filing with the state, to which no one is to blame. The department lost that status, which we needed clarified, as the city is providing nearly 85 to 90% of their budget. There are some strict penalties regarding that nonprofit designation, but that has also been rectified. And currently the department has secured that status again, which is a huge win. There's a mention of a second letter that may refer to a letter sent to a firefighter when we addressed his refusal to stop smoking in city-owned vehicles, particularly near an active natural gas leak. If faced with that situation again, or by an employee, we would not hesitate to do the same, as this is a huge safety issue. There is no doubt that former Chief Fisher is a highly qualified firefighter. His service is much appreciated, and his skills and knowledge in that regard are unquestionable. He is an expert in his field. In fact, nobody on this council has ever indicated otherwise. We feel we have one of the best volunteer fire departments in a municipality our size whose dedication to their craft is second to none. Very few fire departments can boast a membership of nearly 30 firefighters, its extensive fleet of vehicles and equipment, and monthly trainings that they hold. That being said, a person's short tenure here as a city administrator or their length of service when employed by the city is hardly a reason not to trust somebody. We can assure you that an employee with years of experience in national, state, and local government service and nonprofit service, a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and credentials in national leadership programs is every bit an expert in their field. It is incredibly ironic that throughout the letter, the writer claims that the city administration is not transparent. Yet the most emphatic statement of the entire letter makes clear that all of the facts she reports are readily available to the public. This is antithetical to transparency. If we acted without integrity or transparency, we would not make figures public. If any resident of this fine city wished to see any budgetary item or any plan of action, we certainly welcome you down to City Hall. You're provided with emails and phone numbers of every city council member. And with that, we thank you.
Thank you very much, Brock. Appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Get your breath there.
Needed one. There was another issue brought up by her, which she sent an email to me on it, was a community garden. Do you want to speak a little bit to that?
Yeah, actually, she had emailed Billy and myself also. We'd had some initial conversations with Nate. I don't know how long that's been, Nate.
Month and a half.
Yeah, and I talked to Jackson. Jackson's the head of Park and Rec. We need to find a place to do it, first of all. It'd be nice to have it hammered out this year, just logistically, identifying a proper place. There's gotta be some water, there's gotta be some rules put in place. And she's volunteered some time, which is great. Apparently she has some history with this, so the plan is to get together with her in the near future here and have her help us, maybe guide us through this a little bit and see what we can come up with. But it's more than likely, maybe work on the project this fall sometime and have her ready for next spring if that's feasible.
Our initial hope when we were approached about this, we didn't think anything was going to happen with Parks and Rec this year. We didn't think the pool was going to open, we didn't think we'd have rec programs. So we thought this could actually be a really good use of time and energy this spring. When that changed, this really, to be honest, went to the back burner. And probably will be for at least a few more weeks until we get those programs up and running for sure, so.
Yeah.
But it's a great project to be planning on.
I don't think this needs a motion to be approved. In listening to Brock's response, I have to concur 100% with what he's done, he stated, especially about the administration and the work they're putting forth. Thank you for your time and effort. All right, we'll move on.
Be that be put anywhere on social media or?
Yeah, I'd certainly take council's direction on that if they wish for it to
That'd
be
be
done
good.
somewhere.
Make a couple copies and put it out on the front desk so
Yeah.
people can look at it.
Put it on our site.
Get
I
it to
think
them however
it's-
we can. Yeah.
well-written, well thought out. I'd like to see it on the web. All right, now we'll get on to the Lennox 2035 survey results.
Thank you, Mayor. So many of you will remember, I want to say we opened this survey probably back in February of 2020. Could have been late January. And throughout the last couple of months, got consistent replies throughout. The total response was, I believe, somewhere around 340 responses for this survey. A really healthy response rate, to be honest. And what we were looking for out of this survey was just a sense of where people are at in terms of what do you think of our street conditions, and of the options that are available, what are most palatable to residents and taxpayers. And it was actually a very simple survey. One question was asked two different ways to see if there was any difference there. There was. I think there's some stuff that I can take away from it. Well, I've got it posted up there. If anybody wants to see it, it's also on your board docs. In terms of favorable or unfavorable opinion of street conditions and likes, I don't think anybody would be surprised here. Overwhelmingly, a negative response here. 37% said strongly unfavorable opinion, 45% said somewhat unfavorable, 15% said somewhat favorable, and 2% said strongly favorable street conditions. One of the notes that I saw when we would get these responses back, there seemed to be a trend of, the folks that rated them favorable were generally talking about their street, not streets of the community, but the street that may be in front of their house or their business. I can't say that was every one of them. There were certainly some indications of that. Second question, do you support or oppose new street maintenance assessment per property frontage foot? No secure revenue for proper maintenance of streets. So this is what we discussed last year via resolution, adding in a street maintenance fee that many other communities have done. In terms of a response, we had about 25% said strongly opposed, 22.5% said somewhat opposed, 40% said somewhat support, and 13% said strongly support. So that was a good indication that there is a recognition that sales tax alone in that second penny is just not enough to do what we think we need to be doing here. That is a somewhat complicated issue to bring up, and so because of that, we asked this question a couple of different ways. We got a different response on the second way we asked it. So the second method was, to what extent would you support a new street maintenance fee per property frontage foot that would secure revenue for improved maintenance of city streets? I think it was 2% said could they completely support a street maintenance fee. 20% said I'm likely to support a street maintenance fee. 45% said they weren't sure. There's just a lot of uncertainty about what that would mean, obviously. Some of the written comments I got back were, well, it kind of depends on where that is, where that level is. Is it $1 per frontage foot? Is it 3? Those kinds of questions. 17% said I'm unlikely to support a street maintenance fee, and 15% said I would never support a street maintenance fee. I think the probably most impactful question is the last question. Given the current conditions of your street and the cost to make repairs, what course of action would you recommend? The first option we gave was to improve several blocks per year with funding from special assessments. We've generally done that to improve some streets during our larger projects that we mentioned a bit ago with Central Basin 1 and Main Street, as well as improving gravel streets to hard surface. 25% said that they would support doing so. Improving 2 or 3 blocks per year with currently available funding was the most likely response. Just over 70%, I think it was 72% were supportive of that. And approximately 4% said do nothing. Just don't change what we're doing. Keep going down this path. Now, I personally, and I don't think seeing it from an economic development standpoint, I don't recommend doing that. obviously. Infrastructure is what makes a community, that's what drives a community's growth. It's really the building block of getting to that next level. And that leaves those two other options. I think there are some insights to take away from that. I think there's still a fair amount of confusion about how improvements are funded, whether you call it a special assessment, a street maintenance fee, or whatever else. There's still an awful lot of confusion about what each of those means and what the impact is on people. So I think, based on that, whatever route we are to recommend and the council decides to take, I think explaining that very clearly up front and as we go through the process about what this means for your pocketbook, for your taxes, it is extremely important to make sure everybody has a clear understanding of what it really will do, how it will impact them. There are streets that, this came up during our open houses and also during when I get comments back on these surveys. There are streets that were special assessed to make the improvements, but the improvements were not what we would consider to be sufficient. There are a couple of streets, I think Fifth, maybe Cherry. Those were streets that were special assessed in years past. When it comes down to it, they were not exactly built to what we would consider our current standard. Whether it's insufficient base or poor drainage, no drainage, a thinner asphalt mat or blotter coat. Those are the kinds of improvements we made, which were certainly lower cost, but they certainly don't last as long either. They get pretty beat up. One of the things that came through loud and clear, and this is something that's gone back, for discussion for the time I've been here at least, that additional training needs to go along with that new revenue of improved maintenance of street services, making sure that we have the right people in the right place doing the right things, and understanding, the background behind that. We have, of course, put a lot more funding in our budget for training this year for all departments. Unfortunately, most of that was canceled due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but I would strongly recommend continuing that practice. Overall, I think the big takeaway is that I think we all know our street conditions are poor, but there's an unwillingness to pay for those improvements. And I know looking at it, it's a lot of money. You're talking about 60 to 70% of our streets that are essentially failed at this point and need to be replaced. We can limp a few of them along for a few years, but long term, that doesn't get us anywhere. There's still a problem to solve that isn't going to go away anytime soon. Overall, I think there is support from residents and taxpayers for a linear foot maintenance assessment or maintenance fee. That would probably make the most impact if the council does decide to go with, a simple, let's do a couple of blocks every year. That would free up additional money in second penny that we can use for reconstruction, while we use the street maintenance fee for the regular slurry seals, those kinds of things. So I have just a few recommendations here. I would start with our gravel streets. I would say in the next 3 years, pave our gravel streets through special assessments for the abutting properties. I think long term, maintenance of gravel streets is time consuming. It is. We have, I'd have to guess at how many miles, Mitch, do you remember how many miles of gravel we have? Yeah. But every time that we need to get out there on a road grader, it is time spent away from something else. And really, at this point in our growth phase as a community, there's no reason for us to have those gravel streets. A lot of those will come with sidewalks and curb and gutter as well, so that would be an additional cost on top of those assessments. I will start improving 2 or 3 blocks per year with the current funding we have available in second penny. This year we budgeted approximately $312,000. If this year keeps going the way it has gone, we'll probably end up closer to $370,000 if sales tax revenue continues to go the way it is. $340,000, not $360,000. That will continue to go up. We know that every house that is sold in the new addition is going to bring additional sales tax revenue per capita. And that will continue to go up and will allow us to do more over time. But keeping in mind, of course, that it's cheaper to do things now than it is 5 years from now. So the sooner we address some of those needs, the better off we are. I would also recommend approving a resolution adopting a street maintenance fee of $2 per linear foot. That would raise approximately $300,000 per year to pay for annual maintenance. So essentially what we would be doing is having that special maintenance, that street maintenance fee, taking the place of what we currently use on a second penny. And taking the second penny and dedicating that towards the street maintenance.
Would people be able to come down and just write a check for that if they chose to do so?
I believe so. I think they could do it similar to how they do a special assessment.
I mean, instead of it just automatically going on the taxes?
Right.
Yeah.
We can look into that.
Has there ever been, and I guess I'll ask the guys that have been around a little bit longer, has there ever really been a street plan, vision-wise?
No,
I thought someone told me, and I want to make sure I'm correct on this, back in about 99, 2000, I want to say it was John Luton, but I can't, don't quote me on that, wanted to do something regarding linear assessment. One, do you recall that? Two, was that for maintenance, or was that to do?
That was for.
Reconstruction.
That was, I believe, for sidewalk, curb and gutter, and the voters rejected it.
Okay.
That was nothing under the ground, correct?
No.
Just above.
Okay. And then, sorry, with the gravel streets, if we go, okay, we got enough money to do 3 or 4 blocks, do we know underneath that, I don't wanna put lipstick on a pig, do we know what underneath that in terms of water, what's good, what's not good, we could start here, or?
I think we'll know a lot more after this year's televising project with sanitary sewer. If there's a gravel street with subpar sanitary underneath it, I think now's the time to take care of it before we put asphalt over top. But we've really got to see what that inspection shows before we would say, where we think the issues will be.
And what's underneath the gravel, are we sure will support an asphalt street?
No, I think we more than likely, I'll defer to Mitch, but I would recommend putting some quarters on
We need a
those.
quarter of those?
Well, we look at it, we have to look at what's underneath there, but more than likely, it's probably pulling all that subgrade out and putting a full section of gravel in.
Because I was just thinking if we could, if it was good, we could just have our guys grade it, prep it for whoever comes in and paves it, then they just come in and slap down asphalt, but.
my guess is that would be few and far between on those streets.
Those guys that come in asphalt wanna put their own.
Yes, they want their own grade. So again, this is just an information and discussion item tonight. I think I would expect to have this on as an action item in the next month, more than likely. Just to start that discussion moving on, is that really the best course of action?
When is our televising scheduled for?
Should kick it off next week, I believe.
They wanted to start this week, and if we get those contracts, they're eager to get started.
They've already been in town, they're working on Central Basin Street, for inspections there, so. As far as water, I don't, for the most part, our water's in pretty good shape.
We're in pretty good shape water-wise. We find ourselves having to replace it on some of these projects just because it's in the way of a sewer main or a storm sewer system that we're newly installing. Or it's just in it's just in bad alignment, or it's not deep enough. We ran into that too.
Yeah, I remember.
The depth would probably be the biggest thing that we worry about, but if the road's already established, we're just putting the asphalt on, we surely shouldn't have those types of issues.
Are you finding a lot of storm sewer tied into sanitary?
I don't know if we directly have seen it, we just, on 4th Street, when we came to Elms, 4th and Elm, I know there was a set of inlets there that seemed to be tied in. I don't know if there was another one up the way.
What about 4th and Cedar? You recall?
I don't recall specifically, I have to check with Dexter, but.
Okay.
Storm sewer is probably the biggest thing, just drainage in general. When you go and pave those streets, just making sure that things drain properly.
We look at streets like West 4th over by West Everton Park and the poor drainage there. Look at South Elm, I would say south of the park. sewer down there to speak of. And, you know, it'll be quite some time before we get to a point where we can add it. So we are looking at some short-term fixes for those areas, but those are still expensive. So it's not something that's gonna come cheap by any means.
Thank you, the report was great.
All right, motion to approve the report. I'm not just gonna go through the formality, so move second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you, most approved. 6-0, approve fire department roster.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Received a new updated roster from Lennox Volunteer Fire Department. As of June 1st, they're adding new firefighter Nathan Timmerman, I believe is the son of Harold Timmerman. Scott. Grandson, excuse me.
Motion to
So
approve.
continuing the family tradition there.
Second. Riley, Sad, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Old Buck, the livestock permit. 212 North Popular.
Thank you, Mayor. This application for chickens was received, I think it was 2 weeks ago, if I remember, right after the last city council meeting. The application provides the information necessary for review, meets the requirements of our ordinances on keeping of livestock within city limits. And there's a picture of the planned chicken coop attached for your review. That's all been received, and I recommend the motion to approve livestock permit for Jerry Alquist at 212 North Poplar.
So moved.
First, second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Fiscal year 2019 annual report.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I gave everybody, the annual report, which is on the desk. I apologize, I didn't get it done here today. And basically, I just went through and did some comparisons from 2018. So, the first area I looked at was taxes. And we had, our property tax increased by $23,010. Sales tax, first and second penny, increased by $23,149. And our license and permits increased by $13,026. So, and I think that going forward, those all will be increasing greatly with everything that's going on. And then the next area I looked at was governmental revenue. And state grants decreased by $188,689. So I'm not sure what they received in 2018, but it was like a state grant of $200,000. But that's why it decreased that much, was because there was a big grant that was.
Was that for the bike path?
I think it was for the bike
Is that what it was for? Okay.
Yeah.
State share revenue increased by $13,567. County shared revenue decreased by $689. Our general government increased by $2,111, and our public safety category increased by $2,412. Fines and forfeits decreased by $3,559, and our library increased by $87. So we received some fines. Miscellaneous and other revenue, we had investment earnings increased by $920. Special assessments increased by $26,482, and I think that's because one of them started in 2019. And other revenues decreased by $6,779, which I'm thinking is because I don't like other revenue or miscellaneous, so we tried to categorize it in a better place. Then I took a look at the expenditures in our general fund, and overall, we increased our expenditures by $228,318. Our executive increased by 33,532. Financial administration increased by 10,279. Our general government increased by 19,428. Police and fire increased by 32,287. Our highway and streets increased by 60,419. Park and rec increased by 15,843. Library increased by 10,650. Museum, 396. Economic development increased by 9,963, and our debt service increased by 35,490. And I'm thinking a lot of that is because we put in some different, programs and increased, I know like police had an increase in their, from 4 to 5. So our other funds, second penny and drainage, this was difficult for me to compare second penny since second penny really did not get used in 2018. So,
It was actually requested that it does on
right,
asphalting some gravel streets, but
right.
our former administrator didn't move forward with that.
Correct.
So, right, so hopefully going forward from this point on, 19 and 20 comparison is gonna be a little bit better. Our drainage fund was established in 2018, but the collection started in 2019.
Drainage fund.
That's for, the storm drainage that was done back in 2000, was it 18?
Would have been passed in 17 or 18, first
Right.
reflected in 19.
Right.
I thought we've always had some kind of a drainage fund going.
This drainage fund is for the loan, the SRF loan number 6.
It's South Main Street.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it's Main Street.
Because there's already been some kind of a drainage fund.
I think there always has been, but that's what they used for that project.
So that was what they're using to repay the obligation
Right.
on Main Street.
Enterprise funds, I don't feel it's really accurate but I did do the comparison because we were cash basis, so it's going to inflate these numbers. So our water increased by 365,496, and our sewer increased by 1,550,751, which that's not even logical because it was all monies that were received, and we were accrual, so it went to cash. Our ambulance did decrease by 16,514, and I think that with the ambulance, we have a plan going forward that will help that tremendously. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Jackson,
Second.
second by Brock. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Both same side. Motion carried 6-0. All right, Stockwell Engineers Force Agreement Letter.
Thank you, Mayor. The issue at hand here is that we will or have exceeded the forest agreement amount for Stockwell for FY 2020. The Finance Committee will recall we exceeded, we projected that we would exceed our forest account agreement maximum with Stockwell earlier this year, as we have several ongoing projects for FY 2020. We received a letter from Stockwell which asked for further approval on our obligation to pay for services that are above that contractual amount. So I think it's important to note that while the total forest account billing is likely in excess of $50,000 year to date, that's not the amount that you'll see under forest account for your finance report. The reason that's how we code those expenses. So in the interim between when Jeremy Jacobson and Jeremy Branson left, and now we've been using Stockwell for a fair amount of public works assistance. And the expenses for those services are actually coded in the water or sewer fund and not the general fund force account that you would be accustomed to seeing it. So I would recommend a motion to approve continuation of force account services with Stockwell.
Do we want a dollar amount on it, or? So is this a force account where we're over it for what we were projected for the year, or up
We're looking
until
to-
now? Where we
so-
budgeted?
How we budgeted, I wanna say 35. So we're a couple thousand shy of that as of June 1st. That's simply because of how we coded.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go over that, there's no doubt about it.
What amount do you think we need to approve, and do we have it?
I would go another 20,000.
And do we have it?
Yeah.
Motion to approve another 20,000 on the force account.
Hey guys,
Rich is gonna come up and talk about working for free.
you know, I know you guys have your coding and how you pay those expenditures, which is different than when we have a contract that's for a $35,000 value, and to go 20,000 is 50, we'll be past that next month. So, I'm not sure how to convey that, I guess. What we're expending, because as far as all the work we're doing is considered on this contract. Okay, and we've already, I think our last invoice is about 50,000, what we're at right now.
Yeah.
Although you're coding it different, you're paying it with different funds on your side. On our side, we need to know that we can exceed that amount. And if we're gonna put another 20,000 in this contract, it's still probably not enough, because you're gonna exceed that very shortly. And I'll be back here again, asking you to extend it again.
Yeah, so if we were going to call it just under the general fund force account department, I would say another 20 there would probably do it. But with 2 new staff coming on board, water and sewer, we've been using Stockwell for some of that as well. So.
Yeah, from what I've seen, you know, I always look at where we're at in the month. We're at month 6, and we use 50, so that tells me we'll probably use another 50 in the back in the next 6 months. That might change when you got your staff in place and we're backing off our services because of that. I guess what I kind of see happen, the amount of work I know that's coming with the countryside and plan reviews and all these things that we're doing, I see us probably spending another $30,000 to $40,000 on this contract. That's where I feel you guys would be on this contract. Above what we probably already got into it now. So that's probably
And you've got what in there now?
50,000.
50?
Yeah,
So we're 15,000 over already?
yeah.
Sort of.
But in your
Eyes
eyes.
in their eyes.
In Stockwell's eyes.
Right.
All right, well, I'll withdraw my previous motion.
In
They're
terms of
pulling
water,
from different places besides this force account.
yes, right. In terms of where we're sitting in the
And
water.
we're saving by not having to pay these guys on our end, right?
In the interim.
Yeah,
Right, until we fill those positions.
Yes. Year to date on water and sewer fund, we're well within
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah. And we only work on these items at the request of our city staff, so they're in complete control of when they utilize us and our staff.
And there are times where we just push this off, you know, we'll have to tackle this next year.
Yeah.
That can happen on occasion, but you look at, we got the engineering submittals for countryside on Friday, it's not minor work. It's something that we were looking to keep.
And that's to be done.
But by you saying you've spent 50 and you can see another 50, that doesn't mean we need to approve another 50 because we will be pulling from other.
Yeah.
But on your contract, it's 50,000, so if
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve an additional, or move that up to 75,000 on the Stockwell contract, instead of doing the whole 50, I'm kind of a pay-as-you-go kind of guy.
Because we're already 15,000 short, right?
We're already 15,000 over, so,
Yeah, right, so make it 65, and we should be.
well, no. We were originally budgeted 35, we're at 50 currently.
Right, so we're 15 short, put another 50 on there, we should be
You've
fine.
spent 50 year to date.
And we've only approved 35.
We budgeted 35 in the force account, in the general fund, yeah. So, yes.
The general fund being the key.
Yeah. From our perspective, you know, if you were to ask me, have we exceeded our force account thus far, my answer is no. No. Because, you know, where we code that, it makes a big difference.
Denise, what's your opinion? Have we exceeded it?
When we get that account, we do put it to water.
So I-
So I do have Nate look at it, and And we do allocate it differently on our end, but on his end, I can see where he's saying, hey,
You owe me 15 grand.
well,
We pay.
he's gonna pay.
I just wanna have an agreement that we're,
He just
that
wants to know
when
if
we
we'll continue to
that
go
when we
on.
put in the service, that there's a contract there.
And that you're not gonna have to come back in 45 days.
And I can sure come back whenever, as often as I need to.
One of the things that I'm thinking, things that I'm
We get charged for that? So it's a henchman surcharge.
can we track this and provide the council the tracking, just like Mitch said, instead of having it, where the council can kind of follow the tracking of where they get paid from differently, so we have it all kind of lumped together
Yeah.
under an umbrella, so we can look at it, so like, yeah, this is going here, that's going there.
So we just need to increase our total to them to 100.
It's an hourly, so if we don't use it, we probably get started.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve the Stockwell contract force account to 100,000 total for the year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, involving money, discussion. Okay, Billy?
Oh, can I ask a question before we go? So like when Dexter is out on like these,
That goes to the central basement.
yeah, that's already accounted for. So this is just other stuff.
Yep, we have all our projects.
Because that's all built into the, whatever the dollar amount is, correct? Okay, that's all I,
Yep.
sorry.
I'm used to it. Billy?
Aye.
Jackson?
Aye.
Chad?
Aye.
Sam?
Aye.
Rock? Chad Will?
Aye.
Okay. Final stipulations that, because it's the amount of money, we have the format, or the council gets to see the money that's spent in some total. All
I
right.
think if anybody is in town on the days we do this, Mitch and I and Dexter,
Mhm.
he's gonna meet once a month to go over all the items that are on that list. And I think last month's list was probably 2.5 pages long of active things that we're working on, infrastructure or planning wise.
I came to that 2 months ago, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, you were at the one, in May.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a good problem.
it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something I would, take lightly if it weren't something that we're, this is something that's important, it's important stuff for us to be working on. To point to my, city administrator's report for this meeting, about the drainage issue on South Elm, the lack of drainage there is absolutely tearing that street apart, it's tearing driveways apart, and families have to live with that. Yeah, I think we have a responsibility to, plan at the very least for making improvements, so.
Moving on, swimming pool certificate of substantial completion.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the, one of the final steps in the swimming pool project. So what you have in front of you is our certification, essentially, that we agree that the pool is substantially complete. The date on this will be May 31, the final date of May, the day before we actually opened it. The crews have been on site last week. I believe we'll have one more guy on site late this week, if I remember right. Do a couple other minor touch-ups, replacing parts that need to be done. So we're very happy with where this is at. Seeding will be done hopefully this week if the weather cooperates. But there's, as with any project, there's things that we know that we're going to want to change before next swimming season. So be prepared for some of those changes this fall.
So, is there anything you see down there that needs to be taken care of?
As for the engine door, they fixed that. It's a half-size door for the concession stand. I would say that needs to be painted yet, maybe sanded down. I believe when they come in, possibly later this week, that's something they'll work on. They have it paint on site.
You got a list of things that you want them to take care of?
Punch list.
We've already had a list go through.
Yeah.
They've taken care of a lot.
So the door was, the original half door that was on there was the right color. But the latch was off by about 4 inches from where it should have been. So they had to order a new door in before they had put everything. So the new door didn't match the paint, so it's one of those things that pops up late in the project.
Overall, some screws are tight, huh?
They're making it now. They're actually, Friday, Saturday, I think.
I was the first one off it.
Saturday I was filming, and, once again, there was a problem with them. Is it Saturday or Sunday? I don't remember what day it was. But there was a problem with, one of the ladders, a bolt on one of the ladders. The guys from Crows were actually there, and, were ready to make some action on it, so they took care of it right then. I think we had the board shut down for maybe 10 minutes tops, back at it, so. Yeah, overall, I think everything's working really well there. I know, Park Board mentioned it last night, we got a great crew of lifeguards. I mean, just phenomenal. They know their work and they do it well.
Socially skilled too. Really pleasant to be
It's
around.
just exciting to see kids run around, laugh, have fun.
We have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries 6-0. All right, personnel, seasonal hydrant maintenance position.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the item that was on the agenda that was mentioned during public comment, just for discussion and information, and really get some direction from the council on which direction to move here. Earlier this summer, we undertook some hydrant flushing at the request of the fire department. And after that, some more discussion on system maintenance continued, whether it has to do with exercising valves or painting curbs for no marking around hydrants, making sure the hydrants have flags on them. Some relatively minor stuff, but still important to fire protection. So I think Mr. Wolf is probably the first that was approached about this. We've talked about it, I've talked to a few other folks about it. There's certainly some merit in working to create a seasonal position to take care of some of the stuff. In water and wastewater, we do have two very qualified individuals that could do some of the stuff. My concern is whether we should have them doing some of the stuff, given what else they have to work on right now. Getting to know a new system, a new plant. This year may not be the best year to have us task this to them. And if that's the case, if it's something where we simply need to do some painting to hydrants, make sure they're flagged, make sure the flags are good. That's something that we may be able to take care of with a seasonal position for a couple of months. Certainly, cost-wise, yes, you're adding a seasonal position, but you're also not spending valuable dollars for those existing employees on what could be done for far cheaper. So, I really welcome any additional feedback.
Where are we at on the budget for our seasonal and all that?
Do we have money in the wastewater fund for this, or water fund?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Both funds are both sides.
So how do you wanna do it? Do you wanna make them an hourly employee or kind of like a contracted 1099 employee where you get X to do everything?
Denise?
I would do an employee, a seasonal employee. Just mainly because I think that, unless you have somebody come in and that's what they do for a living. I mean, if they have a company that's what they do, then 1099 is fine, because you're not directing them to come in at 8 o'clock, you're not directing them to go home at 5 o'clock, they're coming in, they're doing their business as they
I
normally.
suppose they'd have to use their own tools,
They have to use their own tools,
buy
yeah,
paint.
right. So, as an employee, then you can dictate, I want you here at 8, you'll stay till 5, you can use this paint, we'll provide it, what have you.
Do you
So
have
that's
any-
the difference.
do you have anyone in mind, or do you have any applications?
I've got a couple applications that came in late for groundskeeper that would be well suited for this.
And I had talked to Chief Strasser also about this issue, and he says, of all the firefighters are, the majority of them, 90+% are just volunteer firefighters. And they're heading up to a site, and it's really important for them to understand, what kind of pipe they've got connected to that fire hydrant. And so they've got to be those color coded. We've talked about this for years and getting this accomplished. I do feel like we've talked about cross-training all of our employees anyway. Like, I think Brian, Kyle, Jesse, Louise, Darren, they all should be trained in flushing those stinkers. In fact, Chief Strasser brought in, I think at our last meeting, a whole baggie full of stuff.
Yeah.
So those need to be done, and we can ask him on just how often that needs to be done. And then they are willing, I talked to them today, they're willing to, sit and do an orientation for these folk for like 45 minutes or.
I'm thinking even you do like you guys working in the park, if we get a rain day and everything else is caught up, they can go out and flush hydrants in the rain.
Hydrants should be flushed twice a year.
Twice a year.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, they were flushed a month ago, so I wouldn't necessarily have them flushing it
Right.
at this point.
do you know how many we have?
Not off the top of my head. It's in the, it's in our ISO report.
And another option, now, typically in the last 3 or 4 years, it's been absolute monsoon season, right? So we can't keep up with the mowing. Well, if we get another month like this, we don't have to mow, and so can we free a park person up to go and do part of that? I don't know, but if they're not tied down to that mowing,
They've gotta know how to.
not the flush, but just paint, just
Oh,
paint.
Well, I think those guys time could be spent doing some picnic.
Other parts maintenance.
Yeah, other maintenance stuff.
I think it's something we can certainly discuss with the groundskeepers. I think I think we have more things we can keep them busy with, the groundskeepers, I should say. I think given the weather this year, you're right, we don't have to mow nearly as often as we have in the past, certainly last year. But that being said, we also, have committed to making certain repairs throughout the parks. We'll have projects ongoing in West Evergreen. Basketball hoop replacement is happening soon, so we purchased that today. And, those are the kind of things that we also want to have them on. So it's always a back and forth of which priority is the top priority for the day, given the weather.
So when I brought it up to Nate originally, I mean, part of my thinking was, we're down one staff right now, he's coming in, it's gonna take him a little while to get up to speed. And he needs to be out there learning, Brian needs to be out there learning. We can't keep kicking a maintenance item down the road, let's just, if we have the funds available in the water this week, so we're going to be able to do it, I think
It should be
money well spent.
Yeah.
And it's not something we're gonna have to do every year if it's done properly.
What are we thinking about the wage?
I would probably put it at $12 an hour, just as we have for the assistant groundskeepers.
Yeah.
We'd probably be looking at, by the time we get them hired and on board, 2 months of work before, assuming that it's gonna be a college or a high school age student, before school starts up. So we probably, figuring 320 hours at $12 an hour, less than $4,000 in wages.
So are you thinking you wanna hire somebody tonight, like you have somebody in mind, or?
I have somebody in mind, but I haven't interviewed them yet. And I think there's 2 or 3 applications that came in for groundskeepers that we could consider, so.
Do we have to repost on this, Denise?
I don't think so, I mean,
I don't think this is a seasonal
It's a
maintenance
seasonal.
position.
yeah.
All right,
So could we approve the hiring of that upon an interview?
Yes, if,
I mean, if you wanna move forward with it, if that's what you guys think.
there's a couple of, I want to make sure we have a job description done as well. So, and that's something I would want to talk to Chief Strasser about, make sure we have the right things on there for this level of position. Again, I don't think this is necessarily something that needs to be done for exercise methodology. That's something that
Correct.
water and sewer crews need to do.
That should be those guys.
Yes. This is more of a general upkeep, and keeping things, in good appearance for fire department purposes.
I would say they could paint those and then paint the curves by the fire hydrants.
No parking around fire hydrants. It'd be a very simple job description, I'll be very honest. There's not a whole lot that's gonna go into it for essential responsibilities.
so, motion?
I don't think we need to do it.
We do not need a motion if I'm just getting direction tonight on how to proceed, there's no motion needed. If the council would prefer to,
Authorize you to
just
hire
have us take action as soon as possible, then I would recommend a motion to hire the position pending background check and job description.
Otherwise, it's 2 weeks out.
It's gonna be full season, and our guys are going to take care of it next year?
I think we have to roll it into either your regular park maintenance, or your groundskeeper's duties, or,
Hopefully, we don't have to pay them again for
Another-
just other than touch-up stuff.
Cause that's why I asked how many there were, could they get it done in 2 months? You'd think so, but there's more hydrants
there's a
than you
lot
think.
there.
If you actually look for it,
Well,
there's a
there's a
ton of
lot
them.
of them.
Yeah.
And I understand, Stacy's comment, and I understand that, but just to get this knocked out with something we've been talking about at $4,000 out of the water fund, I think, in my opinion, is fine. Not to flush like it said in the British, but just to
Yep.
paint a painting menu.
That would, point out, too, with the water fund, we did have, 3 full-time positions budgeted for water and sewer this year outside of utility billing. So that's actually 3 operators that we budgeted for. So there's plenty of room in the budget for those wages.
I'll make a motion to move forward with that, off of a creation of a job description and interview.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? It'll be for about $12 an hour, too. Yeah. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries 6-0. All right, seasonal pool employees.
Thank you, Mayor. This comes up with the new restrictions we have, or precautions we put in place for keeping safe and sanitary conditions at the swimming pool. We would like to hire 2 additional pool attendants. Those are the folks that are responsible for keeping social distancing, spraying the equipment, so on and so forth. And 1 additional lifeguard. So those employees are Tanner Miller as a pool attendant at $10 an hour, Gavin St. Cooley, pool attendant at $10 an hour, Mitchell Peters, lifeguard at $12 an hour.
Motion to approve.
Second.
And this doesn't necessarily add any budget, it just is gonna lessen certain hours in terms of flexibility.
It adds us more staff.
Okay.
Yeah. We are, I think, more than likely going to up our level of lifeguards on at any given time. Just in terms of how we've got that deck spread out, there's a couple of corners that are a little bit, in my mind, blind. I need to be watching a little closer. So we've, actually, a couple of lifeguards pointed that out to us as well.
That's there for that discussion, on their right.
So, we're trying to keep a rotation of 4 lifeguards on deck at a time with 1 in the bathhouse.
I was gonna mention, this just came up to me, I should have thought about this before. I've had a couple complaints about some language being used, not necessarily by our lifeguards,
Oh,
but
okay.
others. And they, and that should be addressed just with, you're not gonna swear in here as a patron, otherwise we'll give you a warning.
Yeah.
And I think I got that from 2 people, and I'm just,
Well, did it happen to be Sunday afternoon?
I don't know.
Because I was there and I addressed some of it with the nice young children that were talking that way.
Okay, I appreciate it.
I remember saying to the children that I just it was Sunday afternoon.
So much for your talk, he will take care of it.
No, they laughed after I talked to them.
Motion to move into exec?
Well, we have got to vote.
Oh, we got one more.
I will say real quick, we are going, just so everybody knows, on the pool wages budget, we will be over budget on that this year, simply because of how we
COVID.
done, so.
Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We have election workers, too.
Oh, that's right.
So we have over 200 absentee ballots that have to be processed. And when I had my election school on Friday, Holly mentioned that her mother, Corliss, would be willing to come in and do the absentee, or be, part of the absentee ballot process, if we were willing to let her come and do that. And I feel that it would be beneficial for her to do that, since we have so many of them. So at least I can have somebody opening, and she can get it ready to go, so when they have a slow time, they can go ahead and process those absentee ballots. So hopefully we can get it all done during that 7 to 7 timeframe, and we will be able to count after the polls close at 7 p.m.
So moved. Second. Rodney's closer. All in favor?
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries 6-0. Now the executive session, the motion to break.
Yeah, I just want to memos on.
Motion, hold on, any second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Okay, now we can go break.
Riley, the motion to take it, and